Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast. My name is Darius Wasafi, and today I am speaking with Tejas Manohar from Hightouch. Hi, Tejas.
Great to see you, and thanks for having me on here.
Why don't we start with quick background on yourself? How did you come up with solving a problem with starting Hightouch?
Yeah, for sure. So, quick background on myself. I'm a technologist, product engineering person by trade. I was an early customer of a tool called Segment, which many people may have heard of. It was Segment.io back in the day. They
Mm.
became one of the biggest CDP companies and were actually bought by Twilio 5 years ago or so. I used the product when I was at a small consumer brand when Segment as a company was just like three or four people. And I really fell in love with it. I thought it was so valuable and had a lot of potential, and just saw how fast that company was pushing in the early days, and decided to reach out to one of the founders and see if I could join. So that was my path over to Silicon Valley, where I live today, from Tennessee, where I grew up and spent the first half of my life. At Segment, I got to go really deep into the world of data and marketing, and just saw how much potential there is in the space of data and marketing. But one thing that I saw was that it was really hard for enterprises and fast growing companies to adopt solutions like Segment or customer data platforms, because the first question they had to answer is, how do I get all my data into this platform? And what I saw at the same time when I was at Segment was that there was rapid adoption of cloud data technologies. So think about Snowflake, Databricks, Google, and people were investing in all the data in these technologies, machine learning, data science, you name it. And that's when I got the idea for Hightouch, which you can see as a marketer's platform for all their data needs. So instead of buying a traditional CDP, you can buy something like Hightouch, sits directly on top of your company's data warehouse. And you don't have to be technical as a marketing team. You don't have to need to know how to use SQL, but you can now start building audiences, building journeys, using AI to decide the best type of engagement and content per customer, powering retail media sales, and really activating all this data to drive the business and drive revenue.
Always a proponent of self-service. So it sounds like that's what you're providing to marketing teams.
There's really two elements of it. One is giving them self-service access to all that data that's in their data warehouses today, right? And the data warehouse isn't really seen as a marketing tool. So Hightouch makes it that, and makes it a tool that's
Mhm.
valuable for the marketing team. But the second thing I would say is a level of intelligence. There's one thing of having data. What did customer A purchase in the past? What pages did they visit on the website? But turning that into intelligence that can actually be acted on by a marketer to decide, should I push this customer to download my mobile app, or go in store, or activate an offer, or just send them a product promotion? That's a difficult challenge. And today, the world of that is done with marketers manually building audience segments or journeys in a tool like Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Braze, or maybe running experiments of what resonates with different customer groups. And we've built a product called AI Decisioning, is really able to do that at a one-to-one level with each customer using all the data. We sit on top of Snowflake or any data warehouse that the company is using. We can also connect to their CDP if they have a separate one, or serve as their CDP. We integrate with all of their marketing tools. So customer engagement platforms, email platforms, DXPs they might be using on the website, product catalogs, advertising systems, you name it. We have 300 plus integrations, and that's one of the core value props of Hightouch as well.
What retailer sizes do you typically work with?
We don't work with the smallest of brands. We need to work with companies that made that first investment in deciding that they're going to build out a data warehouse, right, for the company, and have some dedicated data and IT staff to support that. We don't require anyone to have a perfect data warehouse, right?
Mhm.
That's a myth for
There's no such
small,
thing.
mid-size, and enterprise companies. There's no such thing. It's a continuous journey. You know this as well as I do. So we don't require anyone to have a perfect one. We can help with the data cleaning, identity, stuff like that on top of it. We require you to have some investment in there. We wouldn't serve a D2C brand just getting started like a Klaviyo or something like that. That being said, so we start, all the way down to companies that are fast growing in the hundreds of millions of D2C revenue, all the way up to some of the world's largest companies like PetSmart, or the NBA, or Aritzia, or GameStop, and so forth.
Okay.
and very, very big multi-brand conglomerates, some of the biggest companies in the world.
The reason that you focus on the higher income, is it because of the implementation cycle or is it cost? Because I know your prices are pretty affordable.
Yeah, it's a great question. So one thing I should say, yeah, we do have some online prices that's easy for small brands to get started. And the whole model is built in a way where you can start small and sort of scale it up. The enterprise engagements, when you use this across the enterprise, can be a pretty strategic decision for a company. With regards to why we focus on the higher end of the market, it's really two things. One, when you have more customers, and thus you have more customer data, the value of personalization and data-driven marketing at scale and using technologies like AI on data just goes up tremendously. Frankly, when you're a smaller brand, product marketing, brand, product positioning, like those types of things are going to provide much more ROI, and I'll be the first to say it, than data-driven marketing. And I think data-driven marketing and especially optimizing direct-to-consumer engagement with personalization just becomes way more important when you're a larger company and have more customers. So that's one of the reasons we focus on larger companies. And then second, the technology solutions are different for small and large companies. Small companies may be able to get away with just using something like Klaviyo. I love the product, super easy. Have friends who've created a Shopify store and use Klaviyo. But bigger companies have more complex data needs. They have in-store data. They have third-party data to merge in. They might have a data team trying to build some internal models. They might want to integrate their ERP. So they just have a different set of needs. And we want to specialize on those.
Let's get into the Gen AI capability that you just released.
The product's called AI Decisioning. Today, marketers have to really be in the driver's seat about figuring out how to derive insight from your data. You got to go through your customer base and split it up into audience segments, or think of interesting patterns like, hey, maybe customers who recently purchased in store would be interested in buying the same shorts online since they've got their size down pat. But what we found is there's actually a lot of secrets in your data. And there's a lot of secrets in the data of how your customers are engaging with your marketing as well and your digital platforms. So what AI decisioning does is it's a supercharged tool where marketing teams can encode the goals that they're trying to optimize towards as a business, whether it's driving in-store sales, certain product categories, cross sells. You can put in the span of actions that you want our AI to be able to take on your customers. So all the different email campaigns in Salesforce Marketing Cloud, offers in a system like Talon One, ads in Facebook or Google. Hightouch's AI can actually look at each customer continuously and decide the best journey for them on a one-to-one basis. So instead of building the best overall marketing calendar for your business or the best overall customer segments, Hightouch is actually continuously using reinforcement learning. So the same type of machine learning that's used by like TikTok, for example, where you and I get a different TikTok feed, or Facebook. Well, if we use TikTok for that matter, but the same type of machine learning, but on top of all the interactions between a brand and its customers.
The concept that a lot of people in retail are looking at right now, the concept of hyper personalization, that is becoming more realistic to achieve with Gen AI. Seems like Hightouch fit right into achieving that goal.
That's spot on. One clarification I will have is there's a lot of discussion around generative AI in the market, which is, this technology. It's really been popularized by OpenAI with ChatGPT that allows us to generate information at a rapid rate. And that information can be answers, or it can be content or creative, or you name it. At Hightouch, the basis for our AI decisioning product is actually a technology called reinforcement learning, which is more of a traditional machine learning technology where you really looking for in your data for the answers and figuring out really statistically and quantitatively what's the best decision for every customer. But there's still applications of generative AI in our product. As an example, take your content for that matter. So all the different email campaigns you've built in Salesforce Marketing Cloud or Klaviyo or Braze, there's a lot of data in that too. Email 1 is not just different than email 50. There's something that might be similar about them. Maybe they're both discount offers. Maybe both have similar tone. So we actually use generative AI and LLMs to scrape all the content you have in your emails, your website, etc., and generate really rich features or attributes about that content that the machine learning can look into and extract patterns of what's resonating with different types of customers. That's one way we use generative AI. And then a second way is right now, generative AI it's still in the early days of adoption by marketing teams, at least for production uses versus say brainstorming or drafting, etc. But I think it's really going to increase the amount of content and creative that marketing teams have access to. Today, a lot of marketing teams are bottlenecked on brand teams or brand agencies that cost a lot of money to produce variations of creative and content. But once we have generative AI able to create all those variations for us, the question is going to be, what variation do I send each customer? Right? There's more variations than ever, more variations than I can build manual rules or segments around, or I can fit on a marketing calendar, which again, these are the ways that content's rolled out to the market in CRM and lifecycle teams today. And that's really where I think AI decisioning will shine, because we can look at all that content and use high scale machine learning and data science to figure out the best customers to send it to. And not just which content, but when. Should I send that content to you right after you make an online purchase? Should I send it to you as a part of our nurture sequence? Should I send it to you 3 times a week because I have really high conviction that it's going to work? Or should I sparse it out? Those are all the decisions that reinforcement learning can make on really a one-to-one basis with each customer.
When we talk about making decisions, it almost sounds like what we're looking at in the future of agents. Agents are going to make decisions for us. So would you consider Hightouch to be on the path of being an agent, or is it already an agent?
It is already an agent. So our AI decisioning product is basically agentic marketing for the purpose of deciding what content to send to your customers. It's funny, we've been using the agentic marketing kind of language internally for a long time, but I don't know if it was really popularized or reasonable to use that language until the last couple months, if not the last couple of weeks, with OpenAI's latest announcement. So things are moving so quickly in this space. But yeah, that's the kind of way we've thought about it from the beginning. We actually are the system that goes and tells Salesforce or goes and tells Adobe, hey, send this email to this customer because of the data science, and looks at how that's performing to get smarter and smarter over time. It's almost like being able to assign an individual marketer to every customer in your digital customer base, which is like the old way of interacting with customers. When I interact with you, I'm thinking about so much at a time. Or when a store associate interacts with a customer, there's so much that's being processed in their brain to figure out what to tell them. And that's kind of the vision that we're trying to get towards here with AI.
How do you distinguish between public data and private data in what Hightouch does?
Great question. First and foremost, we believe that 90% of a brand's data, first party data and own data that they have, isn't well utilized today. That's really the problem that we're solving first and foremost. You have a treasure chest of data from past purchases, from store activity, from your website that is just probably not being applied today to decide how you're engaging each customer in the future. That being said, we see really big opportunities to incorporate third-party data as well into companies' marketing programs and AI decisioning of what to send each customer. We've seen customers using AI decisioning in both retail and financial services have pretty good luck with incorporating data sets from providers like Axiom that can provide demographic information that maybe isn't being collected on the retail brand's website. And this is something that we can also facilitate in the process. As well as for a really big delivery app, we've also seen interesting success with incorporating things like weather data to decide when to double down on push notifications, because there's interesting patterns there around when people might want to deliver. And I could see that being true for other things too, like on a snowy day, receiving information for snow weather clothes. Public data and third-party data is super interesting, but we think a majority of the value and a majority of the private owned data by each brand is actually untapped today. One thing that we firmly are not doing at Hightouch is any sort of mixing of data between customers. Actually, the AI decisioning product is really building a set of intertwined machine learning models per customer. So it's completely isolated. Your data will never be mixed with another client or never be sent off to a third-party service like OpenAI or anything like that. Every single model is isolated per client.
Our data is one of the most valuable things that we have.
It's a huge asset, right? I was just speaking with a large Fortune 1000 specialty retailer store, speaking with them last week, and basically what they were telling me was that the data that they have about what their customers are interested in and how to best engage them is one of their biggest assets, and that's why they're so excited. They've done a successful pilot of AI decisioning and are rolling it out to really replace their marketing calendar that powers CRM marketing today. But something they feel really strongly about is just being ultra sensitive around what data is shared with anyone else, whether it's anything that could expose it to other customers, generative AI, the walled gardens for that matter, with competition increasing in all aspects of retail, and with companies like Walmart and Costco and Amazon expanding the number of categories that they're focusing on, and these mega stores kind of trying to take over the market. Super important for a lot of retailers to make sure that they're keeping their data secure and making sure it's a competitive advantage for them and not the whole market, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And when we feel really passionate about making sure that's the case with AI decisioning, but not just keeping it to yourself, but making sure you get maximum value from it as well. One of the things we do is we don't even store the data or the machine learning model on our end. We pump all that data back into the customer's data warehouse, whether they're using Snowflake, Databricks, Google Cloud, Azure. And that core architecture is a security promise that customers really like, and something that's true between our CDP.
I'd like to learn more about how did you build that Gen AI capability?
Yeah, so the reinforcement learning models we have multiple kind of different models for optimizing send time, channel, message, more global decisioning of what types of goals to drive customers towards. Each of these models are used in concert, but while we process the data on our end for training the model and for inference, we don't actually store the parameters and the features and the long-term data of the model in our environment. We push all the features and the parameters and everything of the model back into the customer's data warehouse so that they really own this data asset. And they can even use all the great data that AI decisioning is generating on what customers resonate with different content, because we're generating a lot of valuable data too for their own data science or data analysis. They own the data. And I think that's really important for us. The idea of using data more intelligently creates more data. It's kind of a funny sentence to say, but if you think about it, if you're using a marketing calendar, a lot of retail brands are doing, not for all their communications, but for a lot of it, is a calendar where different customers get different communications on different days, and that's how they manage, not oversaturating about different topics, etc. If you use a calendar, you only get so much data on what your customers are interested in, right? You don't know whether a certain type of offer resonates well on the weekend or the weekdays or right after a purchase. You just have a limited set of data. When you use AI to really orchestrate and construct these journeys, we are experimenting at just a super high scale and generating really interesting insights into what customers resonate with different content and why. And we can surface those insights back to the marketing team, which can be useful not just for understanding what the AI is doing, but actually informing their marketing strategy. Two really clear examples of this is one in a pet specialty retailer that we worked with. They've gotten insights back on how certain content that they're sending customers actually resonates with customers with certain pet breeds, right? Which is information they have in their data warehouse. And using that insight, they can actually go say, hey, we want to create more content that we think will resonate specifically really well with those breeds, customers who have those breeds. Another insight has been, we often see that you send out the same sort of batch and blast campaign to promote something to old customers. New customers are being revived from your database, but oftentimes different modules of those emails or different tones or different calls to actions can resonate better with different customers of those segments. So we really balance all that when using AI decisioning.
It seems like we need almost new types of engineering skill to build our applications, and I'm interested to see how that is evolving.
It's a really good question. We have a team of about 200 people at the company, split between San Francisco, New York, London, Paris, and so forth. The AI team is roughly approaching 20 people or so. And it's a team we've constructed really in the last year and a half, which is it's pretty crazy to think about going from not having a team around this, just a product idea, to to, assembling the team, hiring a bunch of people, building the product, getting it in customers' hands. And we're really excited about that. In terms of how we've thought about the engineering team differently, with traditional engineering and product development, there's often kind of one right answer, right? If that makes sense. You're building a certain functionality to accomplish a certain goal, and you can often spec out how it should work and then assert that it's working the best. When it comes to AI, systems that are agentic and actually make decisions, the spectrum of correctness is so big, and you could beat a human decision, but how much better can we make it? If that makes sense. And I think what we found is that hiring engineers that are not just technical, but are also very product minded and creative and clever in thinking about this technology, how it works, and how it can maybe be tweaked or applied to the specific use case is really important, because we see the AI we're creating as a competitive advantage, these reinforcement learning models in the long term. And it's not just making them work, but making them the best. If that makes sense. And that's not something you can write on a spec like you can with another functionality you might have, like how do you sync an audience of customers to Salesforce? While no part of the product is easy, I would say there's a special amount of creativity and someone who's going to go deep in understanding this discipline of marketing and the use cases and the nuances of different customers, and then think about how that can affect the creation of our AI models. That's been really important to try to hire for.
I've been trying to come up with the name. Who is this new engineer? And we have prompt engineers, right? Which is different. So I call them conversation engineers. And these are engineers, product people, whatever skills that understand the conversation, and how will you strike a conversation with a shopper, a customer, between all these different touch points. Even with an agent, you can still bring in other data, relevant data into a conversation. So that's like one of
Yeah,
the most interesting parts of building in this new age of AI
totally agree.
for me.
I haven't heard that term before, but maybe as the agent language takes off, I can get used to this as well.
Well, thank you so much. Pleasure meeting you. All the best.
I'll be at a lot of the retail conferences. So eTail West coming up in a few weeks, and Shop Talk, CRMC, and you name it. So if anyone's there, feel free to holler, and would love to chat more about the way AI is changing marketing and some of our customer stories in the space.